I got the invitation to go on this Armed Lutheran radio show, though. You know this guy? Have you seen this? There's two things that I would like to say that make me feel safe. Number one, the fact that there is a radio show called the Armed Lutheran Podcast somewhere in the world. That makes me feel safe.
Bringing you law, gospel, and guns. This is Armed Lutheran Radio.
Hey folks, welcome to another episode of Armed Lutheran Radio, a show about guns, hunting, competitive shooting, the natural right of self-defense, and what God's Word says about the issues surrounding gun rights and gun ownership. I'm your host, Lloyd Bailey, the Armed Lutheran. This is episode number 481, just 19 shows away from our 500th. Thank you for making Armed Lutheran Radio a part of your week again this week, and thank you so much to all of you who supported the show over the years through just listening, through buying the books, through subscribing, and being a member of what we call the Reformation Gun Club. Thank you to all the Gun Club members who help make the show possible. We are listener funded. We don't have any advertising or any sponsors, so we rely on the good people who we call members of the Reformation Gun Club, whose annual and monthly contributions keep the lights on here at Armed Lutheran Radio. Thank you all so much for your support, and thank you if you are new to the show and would and like what you hear, and if you'd like to see this show continue or hear this show continue, I would encourage you to go and check out the Reformation Gun Club, reformationgunclub.com, or look for a link in the show notes for this or any of our previous episodes. Any amount that you donate is welcome and, of course, greatly appreciated. It does help us continue to do what we do. And we just had our online hangout for April 2026 last week, and we'll have another one coming up in May. So if you would like to be a part of that, visit reformationgunclub.com or look for those links in the show notes and come join us. Sign up. All right, today there's something I've been thinking about and I wanted to talk about. And it is the idea of public schools and student safety. The reason this is on my mind is because there are some things that have been popping up in the news lately. And even if you go back to October of last year, our own local school district and other school districts in our area have been dealing with some issues of student safety. And I wanted to sort of discuss this idea maybe from a little different angle than we're normally talking about it. It's been in the news a lot, of course. Most recently, we had this the story of this principal, Kirk Moore, from Paulus Valley High School in Oklahoma, who, good for him, named King of the Homecoming Court or King of the Prom at his school after he tackled and disarmed a potential school shooter. I think he was actually injured in that incident. I think maybe he was even shot, but he managed to disable a potential school shooter, potentially saving dozens, if not hundreds of lives. I don't know how many rounds the guy had, but still, he saved lives by what he did. And this story, before we get into the school safety discussion, this points to something that, again, we've talked about many times on the show, this idea that was first presented by former NRA executive director Wayne LaPierre. Excuse me for my voice. Allergies in Texas, oh my Lord. There is no such thing as allergy season. Allergy season lasts 365 days a year. It's been raining nonstop for the last few days as I'm recording this. And it doesn't matter. I am absolutely miserable. So pardon me. I am sorry for the voice and the stuffiness. So we'll fight through it. Anyway, former NRA executive director Wayne LaPierre once said, and this was in the aftermath of a school shooting in 2000, I think it was in December of 2012 in Newtown, Connecticut, that Wayne LaPierre said that the only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And I've always taken exception with that statement because it's bullshit. Pardon my French. I've always said, and if you go back over the years, listen to the show, I've never liked this idea that the only thing that can stop a good guy with a gun or a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, because that's simply not true. And the story of Kirk Moore in this Oklahoma high school is just more proof of it. It doesn't take a gun. It takes a good guy with the mindset and the desire to act, to do something. The gun makes it easier. It would have been a lot better if Kirk Moore had had a gun and could have just put the guy down and not had to risk his own life in the way that he did. But Kirk Moore is a hero because despite not having a gun, he had something in him that made him act to protect others. And that is what it takes. It takes the willingness to act. If you have a gun and you're not willing to use it, or you're too scared to use it, or you overthink things and don't actually confront the bad guy, it doesn't matter that you had a gun. If you run away, it doesn't matter that you had a gun and you're a good guy. The gun makes it easier if you're a good guy with the willingness to act. Okay, enough off the soapbox now. You've heard me say this many times. But ever since the Newtown shooting in 2012, there of course have been admittedly, and there has been an increase in school shootings. But beyond that, and disproportionate to the number of shootings, there has been this idea pushed forward by activists, Democrats, and the media. I know those are all the same thing. That school shootings are just out of control. They're happening every day. Hundreds of children are dying. And the problem is guns. The problem is not criminals. The problem is guns. It's not a lack of school safety. It is guns. And nothing needs to be done about school safety unless it involves restricting gun rights. Right? That is the story that has been pushed since 2012 and before that probably, that every time there is a school shooting, the only thing we can do to stop them is to take guns away from the people who aren't responsible for the school shooting. The Second Amendment, your rights to keep and bear arms are the only rights under the Constitution that can be taken away from you based on, or that politicians and activists seem to think can be taken away from you based on the actions of someone else, based on the misdeeds of criminals. The truth, though, is that your child is more likely, or equally likely in many cases, to suffer or to experience some sort of calamity other than a school shooting. If you go back and you look at the data, if you look at the official government data tracking of incidents, and I did a search, and I specifically said, give me government sources, because I don't want to hear from activists who lump in a bunch of crap. When I say I want to know about school shootings, I don't want to hear about the gun violence archive bullcrap where they inflate the numbers by counting, drug deals gone bad in a school parking lot in the middle of the night. I want to know about school shootings, actual school shootings. So look at the school shootings. And I'm going to look at 2022 specifically, and you'll understand why I'm taking 2022 as an example. 2022, because I'm going to be comparing it to something else in just a moment, which is really the point of my rant here today. We have, this is also the year that the Robb Elementary School shooting in Uvalde, Texas took place, which absolutely horrified the nation. If you look at school shootings, if you look at active shooter incidents, this is what I'm talking about when I talk about school shootings. I'm looking at active shooter incidents which are defined as, according to the FBI, one or more people engaged in the killing or attempting to kill people in a populated area. This doesn't include gang violence. It doesn't include suicides. It doesn't include targeted attacks where somebody has a beef with a specific person or you have a drug deal gone bad. This is specifically incidents like Newtown, like Columbine, like the Uvalde shooter, like Santa Fe, Texas, where somebody goes into a school not targeting someone, not making a drug deal, not killing themselves and their girlfriend or boyfriend, but someone who is going in to inflict harm on people they don't even know in many cases, just intending to kill as many people as possible. Four active shooter incidents in 2022, and that includes Uvalde. There were 327 incidents of gunfire at schools. Only 188 of those involved injuries. So that means there were 139 with no injuries at all. And of those incidents, only four took place on K-12 campuses, and there were 52 casualties. 52 people for the entire year. Now, that may shock you because the media tells you that this is happening every single day and that hundreds of children are dying. It's simply not the case. Now, I'm not trying to minimize what happens in these school shootings. I'm certainly not trying to minimize the suffering of students and their families, the loved ones of children who are killed. I'm certainly not trying to do that. But I think the level of absolute fear and panic is overblown and always has been. If you go back and you look at, there was an episode, Pastor Bennett and I looked at an article written by a mother who was just absolutely beside herself because she couldn't figure out how to explain, because she'd been telling her elementary school age child about school shootings and didn't know how to make her feel safe, her child. So she was creating paranoia and panic in her elementary age child over an incident that is very, very, very rare. It's terrible when it happens, but it's incredibly rare. So why would you burden your child with that fear? Should you as a parent be concerned about the safety of your children at school when it comes to school shootings? Sure. But should you be in a state of absolute panic like this woman was, who was just absolutely beside herself because she couldn't calm her child down? The fears of her child, which she herself had created. I think spending time making your child fearful over something this rare, all you're doing is creating a future activist, which may be the real reason for the whole thing. You make your children paranoid and freaked out, and then eventually they will become good little gun control advocates like you. But I digress. So as terrible as school shootings are, they happen rarely. 2022, there were only 4 actual school shooter incidents, active shooter incidents in 2022 on K-12 campuses. So this is something certainly as a parent you should think about, but you shouldn't be completely paranoid and panicked about. There is something else, however, that you should be concerned about. We trust our children, those of us who send our children to the public school system. You entrust your child to the public schools 8 hours a day for more than 180 days a year. The fact of the matter is that while in 2022, 52 children were casualties, injured, or killed in school shootings across the country. Now remember, this is a country of hundreds of thousands of schools, 4 actual incidents, and 52 children injured or killed. In 2022, in that same year, there was more than 1 child sexually assaulted by a teacher in public schools. That's reported by the NCES, the National Center for Education Statistics. And this is the reason I'm restricting this comparison to 2022 is because I know you'll find this shocking, but the National Center for Education Statistics doesn't keep track. Numbers are incomplete, and so the numbers have to be estimated. Because why? Why would the National Center for Education Statistics, why would the teachers' unions, why would the public education system want to publish information about what their employees are doing to your kids? And if there's 349, more than 1 per calendar day. Now remember, kids don't go to school 365 days a year. They go maybe 180 days a year. I think that's right. I don't know. I got to look at the numbers. School days per year. USA K-12. Yeah, 180 days typically. August, early September to late May, early June every year. That's what I thought. I wanted to double check. 180 days, 349 students in 2022 were victims of sexual assault at the hands of rape. Now we're talking rape, touching, other incidents. And the reason I bring this up, this has happened in our school district recently and in school districts near to us as well. So more than 1 per day nationally. These are just the ones where the teachers are being arrested. That's 349 students. That doesn't count the number of students. That's 349 public school employees. NCES doesn't track this kind of data. I wonder why. And I think I just mentioned it. I just mentioned why. We are trusting our kids to public school educators, to educators who are supposed to be teaching our kids. Unfortunately, they're teaching them some really bad stuff too. And they're doing some really bad stuff to them. Not all of them. I'm not trying to make this an indictment of teachers. There are many, many, many very good and caring teachers around the country. But the fact of the matter is, in any group of people, cops, soldiers, teachers, priests, politicians, although I think they're overrepresented among politicians, you have some really bad apples. And all it takes is one bad apple to screw your kid up for life. And we trust these people with our kids 180 days a year, 8 hours a day. Your kid is far more likely to be going to school with a child predator than they are to ever be exposed to gun violence. Think about that. And this number that I've seen 349 we know of in 2022. In 2023, the estimate was over 350. We have no estimates for 2024. 2025, at least 135 that can be where records can be found. But this is not numbers that are published, and it should be. It should be kept track of because our frickin' tax dollars pay for this. And these school systems routinely hide this stuff from us. Not only the statistical data, but if 349 educators in 2022 were disciplined or charged with a crime against children, how many more were disciplined quietly by the school systems and then shuffled off into early retirement, or shuffled off to other school systems because they were allowed to, as was the case in my local school system. They were simply allowed to resign and not face any punishment. There have been numerous examples just in my area, in my small area. So this is happening all over the country. Just in the last year, of educators who were involved in inappropriate conduct with students who were allowed to resign, then ultimately applied for jobs in other districts, and the school district from which they resigned, the one where they committed a crime but were not prosecuted for it, they didn't warn the new school system what happened. So for all the, I know here's another thing that I think gets blown completely out of proportion, the talk about the child abuse of priests in the Catholic Church. I'm not trying to downplay those incidents and the cover-up that followed, but the same sort of thing on probably a greater scale happens in our school systems every single year. So for every educator, 340, 350, whatever it is per year, that is prosecuted for a crime against children, and again, that's not just 350 kids, that might be multiple kids. For example, we have a case here in our area where this individual is facing, and the school system is now facing lawsuits from over 30 families involving one educator. So for every one teacher or school employee involved in this inappropriate behavior that gets caught and is prosecuted, how many more are there that we don't catch, or that are swept under the rug and allowed to resign, or are transferred to other schools? How many? I would guess it's probably at least twice that. At least twice. That means there are at the very least, and this is assuming that for each one of these each one of these educators, each one of these school employees that abuses children, that is prosecuted for it, that of those, there's probably twice as many that either are not caught or who are quietly moved to another school district and everything swept under the rug. That means that there's probably, I'm going to guess, I'm just going to spitball, we're probably talking over 1,000 a year across the country assume that those 1,000 educators, let's ballpark it at 1,000, are only violating one child each, which is often not the case. That means that your child is 20 times more likely to be the victim of a sex predator whom they were told to trust. A teacher, most often a teacher, that they were told they should be trusting of, and that parents entrust them with to protect them and to educate them. 20 times more kids are victims of abuse at the hands of teachers than are injured or killed by school shooters each year. It's not even close. And again, I'm not trying to minimize the terrible nature of school shootings, how horrible that is. I am not trying to minimize that at all. But I'm pointing out that there are other things you should be concerned about too, and probably more concerned than you are about the possibility of gun violence at your school. Now, again, I'm not saying don't be concerned about school safety and do you have locked doors and do you have a resource officer and do your educators, your administrators have access to firearms to protect your children, as many school districts here in Texas do. I'm not saying you shouldn't be concerned about hardening schools to protect against violence. I'm saying that's not the only thing you should be concerned about. I'm saying that schools, like everything else, anything else that government touches, and anything else that your tax dollars go to support, it's probably not great. And there's probably lots and lots and lots of danger that you don't even think about on a daily basis. Now, I'm not trying to turn you into that mother that I was talking about earlier that's going to stay up at night worrying that my kid's getting, abused by a teacher. My point here is that whenever we turn our children over to someone else to raise and protect, we are taking a chance that that protection will not meet our standards. We trust the public school system to use our tax dollars to hire good and competent people who care about children. And in the vast majority of cases, they do that. Unfortunately, because in some cases, like our systems here, where this area is growing very, very quickly, and schools are struggling to keep up with demand, building schools hand over fist, raising your taxes to do it, and hiring, shall we say, poorly vetted, perhaps, teachers to fill those jobs, you really don't know what you're getting. And trying to get things fixed in your school system is not easy either, because local school systems are just as crooked and corrupt as the politicians can be in Washington. They will lie, cover things up. They will go behind closed doors so that their deliberations are not subject to public scrutiny. They will even chastise parents for being concerned about these sorts of things and spreading quote unquote rumors and suggest that it's just not what you should be doing and we need to come together, and still they're doing nothing but giving golden parachutes to predators. It happens, and it's happening in your school system wherever you live. And it's something you should be concerned about. I'm not saying don't be concerned about school shootings and making sure that your schools are secure. I'm saying there's a lot more you need to be worried about that happens on a far greater scale. This is not a matter of what I'm cautioning about here is having a sense of proportion. We can't live our lives completely freaked out and scared about what might happen at any minute. But if we're going to be concerned about the safety of our children, it seems your concern should be couched in some form, some sense of reality as to the prevalence of what, or the likelihood of the threats that your children face. And compared to school shootings, which are terrible, I am not at all trying to minimize. School shootings are terrible, and they do happen way, way, way too frequently. But your child is probably 20 times more likely to be abused by a teacher than they are to be injured or killed by a school shooter. All the more reason why we should just scrap the public education system and start over. Homeschool your kids if you can, and make it happen if you think you can't. Or look at private school, or vouchers, or whatever. But if you think that the only way to keep your kids safe at school is to restrict the gun rights of law-abiding citizens like me, while completely being oblivious to the fact that your kids are far more likely to be sexually assaulted by the people that you trusted them with, then maybe you need to do a little more introspection. Maybe you need to think a little more critically about the real threats that your children face and how you really, the things you really can do to protect them. Okay, that's my rant for today. I was thinking about this because of the things that are going on locally, but also this story with this principal in Oklahoma, and it made me think about an interview that I did many moons ago with Pastor Brian Wolfmueller, who talked about the three estates and about how the family is where all the authority comes from, not the government. He was talking about how as our communities, as our country grows, as the town that you live in gets bigger and bigger, now it's harder. Families used to do road maintenance, and they used to build their own homes, and they used to provide their own water, and they used to teach their own kids. And as the schools got bigger and bigger, families decided to outsource those different things: public safety, firefighting, public works like water and sewage and electricity and all that stuff, and public schools. All of those things, families came together and said, we need this and we need this. And they came together and they formed schools, and they formed all these other things. The core of the authority for those things comes from the family. It's still that way today, even though we have a monstrosity of a school system and all the public systems at the local, state, and federal level. The authority for all of it comes from you, the parent. You, the family. Exercise that authority by scrutinizing the efforts to protect and to teach your children, and do what is best for them, no matter what the cost and no matter what effort it takes. It's not going to be easy. If you're used to giving your kids to the school system, to a feminized school system that doesn't vet its employees very well, 8 hours a day, 180 days a year, pay closer attention. Go to school board meetings, talk to your principals, talk to your teachers, pay attention to what's going on in the news. And if things are not to your liking, get the heck out for the good of your children. That's what I'm saying today. Reassert your authority as the parent, your God-given authority as the parent. Okay. Soapbox going back in the closet. If you have any comments or any questions, any thoughts about what I said here today, any suggestions for future episodes, please don't hesitate to reach out. We have a feedback page. Got a new look to the website. Just rolled out something a little different. Use the feedback page on the website if you would like, and contact us with any comments or any questions, or leave a message in our Facebook group, or if you're a member of the Reformation Gun Club, you can do it in the private Facebook group there, or leave a comment on any of our YouTube videos. We'd love to hear from you. Until we get together again for episode number 482, keep shooting, keep praying. We'll talk to you next time.
For show notes, be sure to visit our website at www.armedlutheran.us. Check out the Facebook page, The Armed Lutheran, or join our Facebook group, Fans of Armed Lutheran Radio. If you like what you hear, please leave us a comment on our feedback page at armedlutheran.us/feedback, or a review on iTunes, and let us know what you think. Thank you for listening to Armed Lutheran Radio.